Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio, first episode of 2025. How's it going, Chris?
Ooh, 2025. Hello, 2025. You look like 2024, but slightly different. Hi everybody. I'm good. All good. Rang in the new year in bed. How about you?
Did you? Well, you know that I didn't ring the new year in bed. I was posting videos about your delightful Christmas gift.
Ah, yes.
So this gift was meant to come in time for the Christmas episode so we could open them together. But that didn't work out. It went around the world, literally around the world for about 3 weeks. And I...
Just for context, I ordered this like end of November, and I specifically ordered it from a Swedish website so that there'd be no problem, there'd be no tax, just be there dead quickly, no problem. And instead it came from, where was it? Was it Vietnam?
I think it was Vietnam. It was like the other side of the world. And we were like, because we ordered these so early, like you said, to avoid all of this. And I got mine on New Year's Eve, which in a way kind of made it more funny because it was like the last day I really had to wear it.
You just had to wear it hard.
I did. You know I did, because I made a video, and I never make videos on the Instagram, but I made one, and I showed everyone, and I was like, yeah, this took 3 weeks to come. Thanks, Chris. And then I got like so many messages on my other account saying like, oh, where can we buy these? Oh, you should put these in the DSR store. We all want them. So turns out you actually chose an amazing gift, which was just a merch of yourself. Oh, we didn't mention what it was. It was a Christmas sweater, but it was cryptid and UFO themed. So it was like little lights, a string of little Bigfoots, and then a large Bigfoot in the middle with a Santa hat on getting abducted by a UFO. And it was all Christmas pattern. And then on the back, I think it says believe in Christmas lights. So it was Chris merch. It was Christmas merch, basically, is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was perfect for you. I thought you needed something that was very you to bring in the holiday spirit.
You know what? I think it was very you. I think you wanted that, and you bought it.
Well, it's not my size, so that goes against you.
Yeah, it was slightly too big, but it is a Christmas jumper, so you got to wear them that way. But I know what I'm getting you next year. We're going to be matching, Chris.
Well, you better order it now because it won't be.
Exactly. I'll order it. It's probably on discount in the summer.
Excellent. So, Linz, of course, we should let everybody know that they can find the images that go along with today's episode over on our Instagram, which is
d.s.radio.
Exactly. And if you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon. And you guys really do help keep this podcast going. We can't thank you enough for your support. We've got lots of nice things coming your way soon. But I do need to thank A Hawk, Chris Lebowski, Patrice, Ordained Sinister Minister, Devon Sweatshirt, Graves, Cropley Crab, Crash Brodias, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Spoof, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibson, Drake Halvig, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, The Toxic Avenger, Pip Marchi, and Philip Hoffman.
Hell yeah. All of our favourites.
All of our favourites, except for you. Listening to this, that wasn't in that list. Of course, you're our favourite as well. It's just we don't have a way of officially acknowledging us because you don't give us money. But if you want to jump on board, please do. We did a bonus Q&A. That was the most recent thing that came out. And watch this space for more.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things, actually. If you join now, there's a lot of older bonus episodes to listen to about all sorts of stuff, really. It's a very mixed bag. Kind of stuff we don't do on main as well, so... yeah, join up, listen to them, and yeah.
Enlist today.
Oh god. I watched a movie yesterday, I think it's number 42. I can't quite remember the number, but it's about this like Norwegian soldier in World War II who went on all of these secret missions against the Nazis. It's really good.
Nice.
Good movie, watch it. It's on Netflix.
Okay, cool. The last movie that I watched... I haven't watched any movie. No, I did. I finished that Red One No, this is going nowhere.
Red one. Oh God, the
Like we
rock
talked-
thing. I was like,
yeah.
Chris, I don't think you should be talking about whatever that is.
Big Booty Bitches 19.
Just like themed on like people wearing the 90s gladiators costumes and battling with their huge Q-tips.
I mean, I'd watch it. Especially if they look like Jet and Lightning.
I don't think they're the ones with the Q-tips. Speaking of row, check the chat for a picture of Black Mass as we're calling him now, who is purring in the background. I don't know if that's going to come across on the recording, but if you hear some rhythmic little bassy noise, that's what it is. And Chris has got a lovely picture of him here.
That fish next to him should keep him quiet.
Oh, so cute. All right. Well, now that we've got all the housekeeping done and we've asked each other how we are, it's time to get into today's case, Chris.
Woo! And what are we talking about today, Lindsay?
Well, I'm going to start it with a question to you, Chris. And
No.
that is, well, I think it's yes, because a memory has just flooded back to me in this moment, which is very weird. Your voice has activated my memories. Okay. But the question is, anyway, you can answer regardless, even though it's just come back to me that the answer is yes. Chris, have you ever been green?
Have I ever been green?
Have you ever been green?
It's not easy being green.
Yeah.
Have I ever been green? What, like with envy?
Green in colour.
Green in colour?
Have you yourself ever been green?
Like my skin?
You, yeah. Your skin. Have you ever been green?
Well, I feel like you just told me the answer is yes, but I also feel very strongly it's no.
I feel like Nardwar. You know when Nardwar interviews like artists and he knows more about them than they know.
Was I ever green? No, I don't think I've ever done Yoda for Halloween.
Right. So I thought you would have remembered this, but you probably don't remember this at all. This lovely time in your life. God, I'm recalling it just like it was yesterday. We met up in Bangkok, didn't we? And you had just come from the killing fields of Cambodia with some kind of virus. And I was drinking a Chang beer. You were drinking a Japanese green tea, I think. And you went completely green in the face. You stood up at the table that we were all sat at and you said, "I'll be right back." And I assume you went to hurl chunks.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, yes, that did happen.
Why did that just come back to me when I heard your voice?
It was Thailand that did it to me though. What's that place called? What's the beach place up in the north called?
In the north.
There's a lot of beach places. in
Yeah, I
Thailand.
was about to say there's loads of islands and loads of beaches. I'm not sure.
Phuket.
Oh, Phuket.
Phuket. There you go. Yeah, but not from the. I wasn't ill from indulging myself. I picked up a virus when I was there.
So you have been green.
I have been green then, yes. I have.
Well, today we're going to talk about a case I see around a lot, but I've never really looked into it. And that is the case of the Green Children of Woolpit. Chris, what is your knowledge of this case, if any?
I mean, I can only assume that one of them was captured and went on to become Kermit the Frog. Aside from that, I know absolutely nothing. I don't even know where Woolpit is. It sounds quintessentially English, though.
So you've never even heard of this case?
Nope.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well, it's based in Blighty, so we'll both enjoy this, but today's case takes us to the small village of Woolpit, which is in Suffolk, in East Anglia.
It's between Cobswobble and King's...
You know what? Some of those words might come later. You're closer than you think. So, Woolpit is located between Bury St Edmunds and Stowmarket, places I used to frequent, if you remember.
I do.
I didn't know this before I started searching it, and then as soon as I found out, I was like, yes, of course this happened there. So, in 2011, it had a population of just under 2,000 people. So, very small place. Its name is a modern play on the Old English term Woolpit, which is spelled Wulfpytt, which refers to a pit intended for catching wolves. Yep, England did once have wolves roaming around. That is until we destroyed their living spaces and basically hunted them to extinction. Really weird to think that England had wolves.
Yeah, but I mean, we covered this, didn't we, in the werewolf episode? A little
Yeah.
bit. You used to have wolves and bears, and I mean, there's even legends that there were lions. I don't believe that, but legends.
Well, we
go.
probably brought them over at some point. You know,
Yeah.
we always did weird shit. But I didn't know that British mammals that are native and live in the UK, they're affected by island dwarfism, apparently. So they only grow to like a certain size.
Oh, really?
Suited to their smaller environments, yeah. And British wolves, they were completely unaffected by island dwarfism, meaning that they just got to be absolute units. And they also got terrible PR back in the day, so they were basically hunted, killed, extinct. And we talked about this, there was like bounties on them and stuff. So we're rewinding today back to a time when wolves still roamed England, back to the medieval period, where two medieval writers, Ralph of Coggeshall, a monk and chronicler, and William of Newburgh, an English historian and Catholic priest, both penned strange accounts of two peculiar children who suddenly appeared one day in the village of Woolpit. So there's two accounts of this story.
Okay.
The bones of the story is basically this, but we will get into details later. But since you've never heard of it, this is basically what it is. So, sometime around the 12th century in the village of Woolpit, two children appeared seemingly from nowhere, speaking in tongues, dressed in strange clothing, with, well, green skin. Is this ringing any bells?
No.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of this at all.
Great, all right. So let's introduce the authors properly first, and there's a reason for that. Since there's only two accounts, we might as well get to know them and try and figure out where the story actually comes from. The details of the story are recorded in two separate texts of the time, written by two different people who lived at opposite ends of the country. So in 1189, William of Newburgh, also known as William Parvus, wrote a text titled Historiam Rerum Anglicarum. This text contained one of the accounts of the Green Children of Woolpit, which was reportedly constructed from the accounts of, quote, trustworthy sources. Ralph of Coggeshall also penned his account of the tale, and his version of the Green Children came from an account of a man named Sir Richard de Conn of Wykes. So who is Conn? So Conn is described as a knight in some texts that I found, and he's also referred to as Sir Richard de Conn. So he was thought to have died in or around the year of 1188. The existence of Conn has been verified by at least one modern researcher, a guy named John Clark, who actually resided in the southeast of England, around 30 miles from Woolpit. Clark says that de Conn likely did exist, and that there are a couple of accounts that pinpoint the man's death around 1188, meaning yes, he did exist around the time of the tale, so it's not a completely made up account, and there's figures that are confirmed to have been around at the time. Although this story sounds like an absolute fairy tale, there is actual historical figures who have been confirmed to be around, and I think a lot of people kind of overlook this with this case because it is very bizarre.
So neither of these writers, Ralph or William, they didn't first-hand see these green children, but
No.
they're writing it from reliable sources, possibly knights of the realm.
So Ralph, he actually lived in the southeast, and I think he had he knew these people firsthand. Whereas William, he lived in York, so he was at the other end of the country, and he got his sources from several reliable people. So William's version of the story is found in his biggest work, which we mentioned, Historia Rerum Anglicarum, which is basically a history of English affairs. His accounts were not only the groundwork for modern historical historiography, but his works over the years attracted those who had an interest in the occult. Because William of Newburgh wrote a lot about revenants in the medieval times, corpses brought back to life, to roam around and haunt the mortal world. And these green children we'll be talking about today really fit into his works quite nicely. He wrote a lot about fairies, demons, ghouls, things like that. Sourcing your text back in the medieval times wasn't really that important, so it's not known if William and Ralph even knew that the other had written on the subject of the Green Children. William was based in Yorkshire in the Midlands, so he was pretty far from Woolpit, just under 250 miles away. Some speculate that one may have seen the other's earlier drafts of the stories, but nobody knows for sure, so we do not know if one knew that the other had ever written about this. So we go back to Deccan here, the knight who existed at the time of the Green Children. The interesting thing about Deccan is that he supposedly both met and personally housed or hosted the children who are the centre point of today's story. So with the background set up, let's get into the arrival of these Green Children. Here's the story. As I've been trying to explain, the exact date of the following event is kind of unknown, but what we do know is that it takes place in the 12th century, possibly around 1135 to 1154. So let's set the scene. The villagers of Woolpit are going about their day when they happen upon two strange and distraught children standing near one of the many wolf pits in the village. One male child, one female child, both described as, quote, green at every point of their body. These children were wearing what the villagers described as, quote, clothing of a strange hue and unknown texture, and they were speaking an unknown language. Ralph of Coggeshall described them as having a green tinge. So these strange green children seemed to be completely alone and unaccompanied by an adult. They were, according to Ralph anyway, taken to the home of Richard Deccan, the knight. Once there, they cried endlessly and exhibited strange behaviour, rejecting all and any food for several days, until finally eating only after being offered raw broad beans. Some fresh green beans were brought into the house. They were freshly cut and still had the stalks attached. The kids got really excited at the sight of the raw beans and attempted to open them at the stalk instead of the pod. They started crying with disappointment when there were no beans to be found in the stalk. They then watched a demonstration of a member of the household opening the pod, and then the kids excitedly began eating them. This is pretty much all they ate for a very long time. As the story goes, Khan discovered that the children were siblings. The brother was the youngest of the two. At some time, the Green Children began to eat different types of food. Sadly, the boy passed away not long after. He never truly looked well the entire time he was in Woolpit. The girl, however, lived on, and eventually her skin turned to a normal colour. She went by the name Agnes. She grew up and she was described as being, and these are not my words, rather loose and wanton. She was baptised and slowly learned to speak English, and when she eventually had enough vocabulary to work with, she was able to answer questions about how she and her brother came to be in Woolpit.
Those green girls, floozies, Jezebels.
Yeah, I mean... So we're going to continue because she did eventually get enough vocabulary to explain how she and her brother got there, but so far at this point in the story, Chris, what are you thinking?
I mean, can I throw a theory out there this early? Is that okay?
Yeah, do whatever you want.
I'm trying to be a bit Scully about this.
Uh-huh.
All right, so logically, why would somebody's skin be green? It's got to be, sickness or something, but okay, they don't seem to be exhibiting any signs of illness, and apparently went on to live relatively long lives for the time.
Not the brother.
Wow. But don't put
He
holes in my
died.
theory. He did.
No, like he didn't last that long, and he never looked well. But the girl,
Right.
Agnes,
Okay.
she went on to thrive. The brother didn't. So
Right. So possibly it is an illness then. But I'm trying to think of something else. Maybe it was exposure to copper. That like can make your skin green if you're like really close to it. And there's copper veins and mines all over Europe. So that, considering they spoke a strange language that nobody knew, maybe it was just that nobody in the area knew it, nobody spoke it, and maybe it was from a little bit further afield than, say, France or Ireland.
yeah. Also, I think back in the medieval times, small villages even had their own sort of dialects. Similar to what we have today. Like, we speak Geordie, which is technically a different dialect. Like someone from London can have a hard time understanding someone from Scotland, and then you get really thick sort of rural Irish accents where people are like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, very true.
According to Ralph's account of the Green Children of Woolpit, the girl said she and her brother came from a green country inhabited by green people like themselves. She said there was no sun, rather just the dim glow of sunset or twilight all the time.
It's sounding like England.
At least it's green. She said she and her brother were with a flock of their sheep when they found a cave with a beautiful sound of ringing bells and a euphoric feeling about it. They went inside and wandered around and eventually came to an exit of sorts. Sunlight was pouring into the cave from the exit, and their senses were completely overloaded. They felt scared of how bright and noisy everything was. They tried to find their way back to no avail. They were found by the villagers and were devastated that they couldn't return to their land. William's account was slightly different in the fact that the children said they were found in a cornfield while the villagers were harvesting corn. In William's account, the girl said that she and her brother were with a flock of sheep, as in Ralph's account, and said that she heard bells ringing, describing them as sounding like the bells of a local church in Woolpit. In William's account, the girl said that she and her brother were wrapped in the spirit and transported somehow to a field in Woolpit. Again in this account, she said that they came from a land without sun, and that the small amount they did get appeared more like a glow of sun below the horizon. She said their land also had churches and was Christian, and that it was a land separated by a large stream, possibly meaning the sea. In William's account, she referred to the land as Saint Martin's Land.
Okay, interesting. Is that no? That's Saint Michel, isn't it? I was going to say in France is Mont Saint Michel.
Well, there's probably saint somethings all over the world, anywhere that has Christianity.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm just trying to connect green skin and the frogs.
Chris, we still don't have French listeners, so it's fine.
Omelette du fromage.
So practically, anyone reading this story online or maybe listening right now will hop straight over to Google to see if such a place exists. I will do that for you in a minute, but before I do, Chris, what do you think of the story now?
I mean, it's definitely taken a bit of a twist and a turn into the more sort of paranormal or otherworldly. It sounds like, they went through a cave from one world into our world, but you do have to wonder how much of this is caught up in the understanding of what they were discussing at the time. And, were they talking about just, coming from one country to another country somehow? Was there some, was this stream that they talked about, like you said, was it the ocean? It definitely adds an odd twist to the story.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Like, I love the story though. Like, she and her brother are tending to their dad's flock of sheep. They hear like the church bells almost ringing out from a cave. They go in, and suddenly they're transported to Woolpit of all places. I really love it though. I mean, there's so many theories, and we'll get into those. But are you still sticking with your mine theory, or?
I mean, if I'm staying on the logical side of things, it's just about the only thing that works, I suppose. Unless it was some sort of custom in their village to sort of paint themselves green, from dye themselves green.
Ah, okay.
But this is a very, I would have thought people would have been aware of the green people who live on the other side of that cave.
Yeah.
I mean, it's from what these kids are describing. They went through a cave and then they came out the other side of it, and then a couple of little bits, whatever, they found in a cornfield. They weren't ranging for days and days and days. They weren't crossing a continent according to them.
Yeah, from the way the story's told, it's like they were just suddenly in Woolpit, which it sounds like they found a teleporting cave by the way it's written.
Yeah.
St. Martin's then. So I've Googled it for everyone, so you don't have to. There is a St. Martin out there in the world. It's located on the southern part of an island in the Caribbean, which is owned by the Netherlands. Christopher Columbus fixed his beady eye on the island while sailing past it on November the 11th, 1493, on St. Martin's Day, and declared it St. Martin's. But this was in the 1400s, and the Green Children of Woolpit story is in the 1100s. Colonization happened in the later part of the 1400s, so it's very unlikely that this island has anything to do with it. It's just a coincidence. However, just less than 10 miles from Woolpit is a place called Fonham St. Martin. Now, Fonham St. Martin is a village and civil parish in West Suffolk. Its name is derived from the Old English fawn and ham, which means trout village. I feel like that's very Studio Ghibli.
The village of the trouts.
Just imagine them marching around. Its first historical recording was around 1086. The Battle of Fonham took place here during the revolt of 1173 to 74. It was here, records say, that up to 10,000 Flemish mercenaries were slaughtered in droves. So they came over to take part in this war, just, mercenaries, and they were basically annihilated. But a lot of them stayed and sort of lived there until there was like an order sent out around 1154 to get rid of them all, and then they started to leave and go back. And they went so quickly it actually freaked people out, actually. Like as soon as that order was put out, most of them were gone, so they really did haul ass. So here come the theories. Have you developed a different theory yet?
No, not really at this point.
No, you're being very Scully today, which is unlike you. Are you like embodying the Scully scientific mind in 2025? Am I the Mulder now?
Possibly. Maybe we've switched roles.
We have somehow.
I don't know. I mean, did they come from another dimension? Did they come from a green Bigfoot dimension?
Of course you'd hope that. Wait a minute. Do you have some intel that we don't?
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
The day that we do get French listeners, it's all going to go so wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Now it's time for you to yay and nay these things. Here it comes. You ready? Fairies. There are actually some medieval references that describe fairies. They are usually green in colour and inhabit an underground land that lives in twilight. They are said to have entered the mortal world via portals like caves and rivers. Sometimes they're said to have stolen children, sometimes they appear as beautiful women and marry earthly men and protect them, and sometimes they do the opposite, like terrorizing men in their dreams. But yeah, fairies.
Like I photographed them at the bottom of the garden there.
No. Like an earlier version of them.
Right. Like kind of like elves or goblins or something.
Well, I guess these medieval fairies they're usually a regular human height, and they're usually just beautiful, or but they can come out.
Are they just Swedish? Regular, tall, beautiful humans who speak a strange language.
they're just a human height, really. But yeah, I mean, there's different kind of versions of them, but this whole medieval version is that they did live in a little underground place. They were green. They did live in sort of a perpetual twilight, but they could come out, like they'd teleport through caves, rivers, things like that. And then they'd sort of take on a form of a human, but maybe more beautiful. And they did different things depending on what account you're reading. There's good ones, bad ones, you know, they could be healing, they could be stealing your children. It really depends. But so, yay or nay, Chris? Fairies.
Fairies is something that I'm quite like, on. I don't. No.
Yeah, I am as well.
No to the fairies.
Yeah, I never knew much about fairies. Like, the first thing that comes to mind was the same as you, that sort of early Photoshop of the fairies at the bottom of the garden, that story. So I was just like, they're just little things that fly around. Like, but when I was reading about them, like the medieval belief about them, it's quite cool that they all live underground and they could teleport into the mortal world. That's pretty cool. Okay, so nay to fairies.
Nay.
Okay, so a similar one here is one theory is that the children came from an underground land of other people who were also entirely green. We can thank French barrister and author Louis Jacolard for this concept, as he first presented it in a book of his in 1973, and this is often referred to by people who believe in the hollow earth theory. So thank you, Louis, the hollow earth theory.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
I'm guessing that's a nay.
It's an interesting theory. I think it's a one that could be a good episode in the future, actually, at some point.
Yes, right.
But it's also not one that I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely, yep, that's the one.
Nay to hollow earth.
Yeah. I'm looking for a slightly more earthly solution here. I'll tell you the reason why. Yes, they said they came from a land there was no sun, but these are young children saying things. They're possibly sick or exposed to something. They've gone green, or they've been green for a long time.
You've gone green.
You've gone green. But I think, if they were fairies, they probably would have said at some point when they'd learned English, by the way, guys, I forgot to tell you, I'm a fairy.
But that would just be like saying I'm a person to somebody, because they've always been a fairy. They probably don't know that they're an other.
So are you saying that this is like an elf scenario, like as in the movie Elf? Like
Exactly.
He's always lived amongst the elves and does not realise that he's a human.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
All right, before you take off that tinfoil hat, you just keep that on for a minute, okay? We'll get into the logical things in a minute. Because we've got one more theory for you to yay or nay, okay? Not one more, but one more in the strange realm, the paranormal realm. All right, here it comes. The next theory, of course, is that they were little green men. Ooh. Aliens.
Well, so I do know that there's, obviously, a lot of people have sort of retconned previous alien activity, or supposed alien activity, as, goblins were aliens, fairies were aliens.
Yeah.
This kind of tracks a little bit more, in terms of that's what we're used to in modern times. But at the same time, I'm not going, yep, definitely aliens either. But this tracks a little bit more.
Yeah, it's quite strange, isn't it? Like, we talk about now in modern times, we do sort of talk about aliens a lot. Are there aliens? Has the government found aliens? Is this an alien craft? Can you imagine in a few hundred years, people are like, God, those idiots believed there was creatures called aliens. Like, it's basically, are aliens our fairies and goblins?
I mean, probably. In all honesty, probably.
That really got me thinking when I was like, oh, aliens, early example of aliens. And I was like, and we're laughing at fairies and stuff, but back then that was like the aliens to them. Or rather demons, but they did think they were like an entity that could be like nefarious or positive, depends on who you were. But yeah, they were probably having the same discussions about all those mythical creatures as we are about aliens today. So that really got me thinking, like, we're just silly medieval people for future generations.
Quite likely. I mean, it's just that aliens seem a bit cooler to us in 2025.
Yeah, but I mean, ghouls probably were pretty cool back then. Maybe not
Yeah.
ghouls, because you would fear that you would become a ghoul, but maybe fairies and stuff.
Have fairies ever been cool?
Yeah, you know what? When I learned, I never thought they were cool, right? But now that I've learned, because we always think it's those little 2-inch tall, flying, pretty little Tinkerbell things. But when I learned that they could all be living in caves and green and like teleporting around, I was like, that's pretty cool. Kind of like them now. I don't believe in them, but I like them more. So, you wanted logical. Here comes logical. One theory that people really like, the most logical one, I think it was presented by this guy. I'm not sure if a historian before him had came up with this theory first, but this one that I found was presented by a writer named Paul Harris, who is associated with the 14 Times. In 1998, I actually read this whole issue as well. It was really fun. He put forward the theory that, Chris, if you would be so kind to read this.
Of course. The children were Flemish orphans, possibly from a nearby place known as Fornham St. Martin, which was separated from Woolpit by the River Lark. A lot of Flemish immigrants had arrived there during the 12th century, but were persecuted under the reign of King Henry II. In 1173, many were killed near Bury St. Edmunds. If they had fled into the Thetford forest, it may have seemed like permanent twilight to the frightened children. They may also have entered one of the many underground mine passages in the area, which finally led them to Woolpit. Dressed in strange Flemish clothes and speaking another language, the children would have presented a very strange spectacle to the Woolpit villagers.
How would you like this theory, Chris?
This is... See, I told you there was mines involved.
Yeah. For some reason, you really know a lot about mines in Europe. But yeah, there was a lot of them, which I guess they could look like a cave.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, well, if you were, I'm assuming these kids were either born in the forest area or were very, very young when they were taken in there, so they probably didn't know anything other than these things. They might not have had any concept of what caves were. The only thing that goes against this is their tale that they were farming sheep when suddenly they heard church bells.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had a few sheep in a forest if you were, because it's wool, it's food, it's kind of good to have them, and you can roam and have a small flock of animals, I suppose.
Oh, definitely. Anyone who's played Age of Empires will tell you that.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what people used to do. That's why we sort of domesticated what we have as livestock today.
Oh, it was more the field aspect I was thinking of, but then again...
Yeah, I mean, it would have been forest, and then they would have came out into a field where they harvested things like corn or what have you.
Yeah. All of this, though, obviously, it's a retelling of a retelling from, or at least if we believe all of this, from a child's point of view. So
yeah, or at least a child's memory.
Yeah. Some of these facts may not be entirely... Well, did I just say facts? Some of these things may not be entirely true. They may be based on a lot of other things. There may be a lot of artistic interpretation that has been put into it along the years. That was why I asked that question at the very beginning, that the two writers of this case, did they see it firsthand? And no, neither of them did. It was a knight who heard it from somebody else, who heard it from the bellsman at the church, who heard it from...
No, the knight hosted them.
Oh, the knight hosted them?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay then. Well, he heard it from a knight who'll take in kids. You could be arrested for that these days.
But some people have said that maybe they knew that these kids were like the lost children of some Flemish mercenaries or immigrants, and they didn't want them to come to any harm, so they sort of protected them with this story. So that these are all theories, of course, but yeah, this knight hosted them. That's what's said. And the Ralph and William, the writers of the stories, they were both chroniclers and holy men. I guess the first record keepers was the church.
Yeah.
And also Ralph personally knew he didn't live too far from Woolpit. and he personally talked to reliable sources from what he calls reliable sources from Woolpit about the story. Of course, people can fabricate things to make it sound more interesting or be a better story, but you know, this is how it goes. We don't know who wrote what first. We don't know. I imagine it would have been Ralph, but then again, information travelling to Yorkshire back in the days from church to church is probably not unheard of. So another theory is one of your favourite, that they were child slaves from a nearby copper mine.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think they could have become a greenish colour from the copper itself, but others argue that if that was the case, they would have died from copper poisoning long before they were walking around completely green.
You just had a little bit of copper poisoning.
You wouldn't turn green from a little bit.
Just
It
a
would be
little bit.
just a touch of copper poisoning.
One more little water of copper.
Many people do offer disease and the effects of a bad diet as a theory, and we have a really interesting post here and a picture from Reddit. So a user on Reddit posted an anecdotal passage about the case where they commented this, Chris. If you could read it, and then I'm going to show you a picture.
I personally have hereditary spherocytosis. Gives me anemia, enlarged spleen, gallstones, etc., etc., and consequently, that makes me jaundice. When I have bouts of illness, the jaundice passes from yellow into green. In 2012, I had to get taken into hospital to get my gallbladder removed, and I was literally bright green. There's a picture of me next to my healthy, non-jaundiced sister, and it's quite comical how bright green I am. It's like someone coloured me in with a felt-tip pen. My mum actually had to warn family and friends that came to visit me in hospital about my skin, so they wouldn't be shocked when they came to see me. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on why the Green Children of Woolpit were, indeed, green.
And if you could describe this picture to the listeners, Chris?
That is quite a green lady.
You can see the sister next to her who's a regular complexion.
I will say though, she, at least in this picture, she looks more yellow than green. In my personal experience with jaundice, it's been more yellow than green. But
yeah, if you look down to her chest, though, it looks more green, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing though is that actually the interpretation of colour is quite subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's not get into whether they believe there was a difference between yellow and green in medieval times or anything like that. Fair enough. You could describe this as green.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite an in-between colour. It's sort of like mustard with a tinge of green, and which is what Ralph said, a tinge. So the user, who is named Roval, by the way, also kindly uploaded the picture, which we've just seen. It started a bit of a blue dress, green dress conversation in the comments section, but I could see someone describing that as green, like we said. So hyperchromic anemia, aka human chlorosis, is a historical disease that was thought to leave people with a green skin tone. This is often debated. It usually affected girls who hadn't had children yet, for some reason, and it would usually go away with a diet change, which could explain how in the story the children's colour returned to a regular complexion after a while. And although this is a theory people put out, it is often debated whether human chlorosis actually made people look green. But from the Britannica here, Chris, if you could read this. Here are the symptoms of that disease.
Symptoms include weakness, fatigue, and sometimes pallor, shortness of breath, coldness of extremities, changeable appetite, sore tongue, loss of hair, brittle fingernails, or dry skin. Treatment consists of the administration of iron. Quick improvement is common.
So this disease was mentioned as early as the 16th century, and it disappeared in the 1930s. Maybe they just didn't know about it before then. But like I said, it's debated whether this disease actually causes your skin or your complexion to turn like yellow or green. But yeah, the change of diet and the loss of the green colour in the girl that survived. I mean, this is kind of why people use that as a theory, because it can go away with a better diet. So, maybe. My personal... Sorry?
Quite interesting that they mentioned that it tended to appear in girls who had not yet born children, because ironically, most pregnant ladies have to take iron supplements.
Exactly. That's not one of my favourite theories, but yeah, it's just one that people put out there. But I was looking for pictures of people who had skin changes with that kind of disease, and I think I just found a couple of pictures from, I want to say India, but I'm not sure. It's like, there was barely anything out there, and the skin didn't look like green, or even as like yellow green as the girl in the Reddit comment. So her picture was like, wow, that could really freak people out if they saw it back then. It's whether it's green or yellow, it's kind of besides the point. It's in the realm of green or mustard, and back then people were probably like, oh my god, like they'd probably never seen such a thing.
I mean, I suppose as well, just following this, and I'm just hypothesizing here, but if these children were raised in very low levels of light, if they were in, thick forest and mines most of their lives, there's no sun, as they put it, then they would presumably have quite a pale complexion anyway.
Yeah.
So that might add to the greenitude of this.
The greenitude. That sounded so Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. We've got greenitude.
My personal theory involves an accidental overdose of gamma radiation altering the children's body chemistry, causing a startling metamorphosis when the children run out of beans and become outraged and angry. Oh no, wait, that's the intro from the hit TV series The Incredible Hulk that ran from 1978 to 82, starring Lou Ferrigno.
Well, I mean, I did wonder. So obviously they were very excited by these beans.
Yeah.
So if you solely ate green beans, that was your only sustenance, would you go green?
I think you'd have to eat like your entire body weight in them. Should we do a speedy Google?
If you ate nothing but beans, would you go green?
If you only ate green vegetables or beans, would you turn green? No.
AI assistant says no.
Yeah, no.
But you can turn slightly orange from eating too many orange foods.
No one was eating too many orange foods back then. No. I don't think you would turn green.
What? Hold on.
What food? I don't think any food turns you green unless it has some chemical added, like synthetic chemical in it, right? Some medication can change your weird colour, but it's not like they were...
So technically, many foods could in theory make you go green. Specifically vegetables, fruits and seeds, because they contain chlorophyll, a complex molecule that gives plants their green colour. So therefore, if you were exclusively eating your greens, you might go green.
No way, you'd break that down in your body, surely. You'd have to eat a fuck ton of it.
Yeah, but I mean, potentially, if you had an appalling Flemish immune system, you might go green.
Can you ask ChatGPT if you eat grass, what happens to you? Can you turn green if you only eat grass out of desperation?
If you eat nothing but grass, you'll likely experience severe malnutrition and eventually die due to your body's inability to properly digest the cellulose in grass, leading to a lack of essential nutrients, stomach upset, and potential tooth damage from the abrasive silica content within the grass. Essentially, you'd not be able to get enough calories to survive on a grass-only diet, as humans lack the necessary digestive adaptations, like ruminant stomachs, that animals like cows have to break down grass effectively.
But could it turn you green?
No, it wouldn't.
Damn it. Okay. So, people write this story off as folklore or an exaggeration by the silly medieval peoples of Old England.
Silly medieval peoples.
However, some people claim that Agnes, the green girl child, married into a prominent family and was wed to the Archdeacon of Ely, Richard Barr. And this comes from the author Duncan Lunan, who is the only source. But yeah, some people I've seen some people on Reddit in the comments say like, oh yeah, like as if it's just like regular knowledge that that she actually married and had a kid, at least one kid. So they could be descendants of the Green Children in East Anglia somewhere, which is very interesting.
East Anglia, wouldn't
I like East Anglia. But yeah, that's the story of the Green Children of Woolpit, Chris. So we got a bit of history. We've got a bit of a debate on what happened in this very strange story. It's unlike any other story we'll probably ever cover.
It's an odd one. It reminds me a little bit of
really odd.
The episode we covered with that princess who turned up out of nowhere, Princess Caribou. A little bit of that, appearing out of nowhere, claiming to be from a strange place.
Yeah. Oh, that was just embarrassing, the Princess Caribou. It was so hilarious. It was so hilarious. I love those old hoaxes. Rougemont, Caribou. Oh, it's so good. I have too much shame to do that, but I just think the people that did do it historically are hilarious. And I'm so glad they did.
It's a very interesting story. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I say you seem to have felt that it was everywhere. I've never heard of this story.
I've seen it. I've seen these, on YouTube, people making like thumbnails of green children, and it's a bit sensationalized in the videos that I've like. I never really listened to them all the way through because they were like a spin on like, oh, this is the first. One of the first accounts of aliens, they do the same, like, the biblical paintings. They're like, oh, a UFO. And then it was kind of like, it's like a rabbit hole I went down, maybe. Maybe it's not as common as I thought. I'm sure some people have heard of it, but yeah, I wanted to know, like, what actually is that story? And is there any explanation for it? And is it aliens? At first I thought I was getting an alien story, but then it just turned into this and I was really into it. I've been looking at this for days.
Well, thank you very much for bringing it to my attention. Firstly, I wasn't aware that I was green. I forgot I'd been green.
You forgot you'd ever been green.
So, all of you out there, I'd like you just to think very hard. Have you ever been green, but you didn't know about it? You might be entitled to compensation. Call today. Yeah, call the fairies, also known as the Thailand Tourist Board.
But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that story and you've learned a bit more about the strange country that we're both from.
It's a very strange country that we're both from, and I will never quite understand it.
I love it. There's so much more where this came from as well. All right, Chris. Thanks for listening, and listeners, thanks for joining us with this file today. I think Chris is closing the file. I'm going to guess.
This sounds like a very plausible theory about the Flemish immigrants and persecution and everything else. It does. I would be very interested in finding out a little bit more about the timeline at some point in the future. How long were they supposedly living in the forest and so on? Because it could get a little bit sort of ridiculous if you're like, oh yes, they lived there for 7 generations and then emerged. That's unlikely. If they were in there for 4 or 5 years or something, like, all right, fair enough. But generally, I think that's probably the most, Occam's razor and all that. It's the most, easy route to an explanation versus it being supernatural fairies.
Well, I'm leaving this file closed, but a little bit open.
Just in case it was aliens.
Just in case. Just in case it was fairies. I'm Mulder in 2025. Who knew? Who knew? All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening and welcome to the 2025 simulation. Let's hope we all survive and thrive. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Localized Mother 3. Bye.